everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Trevor May podcast. I'm your host, Trevor May. I'm looking forward to talking to you about some baseball, and possibly some other things. First off, I would like to apologize for that brutal intro to the podcast. I don't really know what I'm going to do there, but I went and found some great music. I thought that I would, try something new. It's a chill beat, but hopefully we can look into getting someone else who is good with these intro things, or does them professionally. Give me a nice little professional intro here to the first ever podcast, but. That kind of will come with the territory, I guess. With having a podcast, you kind of learn as you go. So, I just want to welcome you to our first ever episode of the Trevor May podcast. I wanted to do something a little bit different. Talk about some baseball. I know that it's been a lot of video games for the last year or so, but Tommy John has been dominated, and now it's time to really get back into the baseball life and the baseball culture. I wanted just to preface this by saying that I'm really excited to do something like this. I think that this is something that is right down my alley for something that I would be good at. I think that this is kind of a cool idea because it's going to do a few things. One, I spent a lot of time in my life and my career recording things I've done to try to improve myself, to try to get feedback, to try to try new things. And, I got notebooks on notebooks full of affirmations and goals and ideas and all kinds of stuff. And I thought this would be a really cool way for me to be able to share a lot of that stuff with you. But most of all, and I think a really, really cool opportunity that I would have here is putting stuff out publicly, out on the internet, especially in audio form. It's really hard to get rid of it once you put it out there. And I think that, a lot of the things I would like to do and that I'm still learning and that I want to apply to my game when I'm out on the field or to my life on a day-to-day basis, putting it out there kind of adds an element of accountability, and you as my listeners are those that are keeping me accountable. So, when I talk about, having a mindset or some sort of element of my routine that I may not have turned into a habit yet, this will just be another fire lit under me in order to make sure I stay on that and really, really see it through to the end. And that's something that I think could be extremely beneficial to me. So first of all, let me just say thank you for listening, anyone who's interested. And this first episode is kind of just a spitball. I would love to bring on some teammates, some ex-players, some coaches, some even members of the organization that you may not think or don't really think of that much, or don't really know their importance for how we do day-to-day operations, talking video and scouting and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of opportunity here to get people on to kind of give their story and let give some insight into things that they do or whatever it is. It's all very interesting. Similarly to how my day today and how I got to where I was is interesting as well. To some of you anyway, I hope so. So I wanted to start this first episode and really, really just hit right on my journey to where I became a 28-year-old, just coming off Tommy John surgery in the Minnesota Twins organization, with 3+ years in the big leagues of experience under my belt, and going into my 11th year of professional baseball, and how I've kind of developed from an 18-year-old kid that was afraid to move away from home into a married man with a cat and a beautiful wife. So basically the only way to really do it is take it all the way back. I want to identify. I want no matter where you are in your journey, in the baseball journey, to be able to identify some point, somehow, some way with my journey, and know that, there always is a chance. You always have a opportunity, and if the chips fall the right way and you check all the correct boxes and you follow that path, that you also will have an opportunity to either get to where I am and be a baseball player, but more than that, find that thing that it might be baseball now, and but later it turns into something else, but you have the tools in your toolbox in order to be successful at whatever that is too. I think that's extremely important as well. But it started with me back in, well, I guess what's 22 years ago, 1996. I was a 6-year-old in a small town called Kelso, Washington, population 15,000 people, right next to our neighbor city, Longview, which it's been said up on the board during when I was coming up that I was from Longview. Not the case. They are our rivals, and I am not from Longview. I'm from Kelso. They're a town of 30,000. They have 2 high schools and we have 1, and that's the story of Kelso Longview. But I grew up. I started at 6 years old. My dad asked me if I wanted to play baseball this spring or soccer. I think I played both. I played 3-man soccer where the goalies just punted the ball back and forth. But I also played t-ball. Fun fact about that summer and that spring and summer is I hit 26 home runs, only one of which that went over the fence. But I realized that I was extremely competitive and that hitting the most home runs in the league was very important to me. That maybe meant that I just hit the ball no matter where it went. I just kept running until someone tagged me. And anyone who's a parent now or fondly remembers being in t-ball, you know that the skill cap of the players might not be the highest, and throwing and catching is the first thing being learned. So I was able to get away with that quite a bit. But that's really kind of where my competitive spark started, and that wasn't just in baseball. I was the kid always racing everybody on the playground. I was always very, very numbers oriented, which kind of turned me into a results oriented person, which I'll get into in a moment. But it was important for me to kind of set myself apart. And my dad is a 6'4" and a pretty athletic guy. I was a very, very large child, almost 11 pounds when I was born. So we all kind of assumed I was going to be huge, which with it kind of came that you can play sports. If you're big and strong and fast at that point. And so I went all in on sports. My dad was a basketball player all through college. He was one of the leading scorers in Kelso high school history. My family is everyone went to the same high school. All my sisters, my brothers, and my parents, we all went to Kelso high school. So we're kind of a legacy there. So basketball, became a big sport for me when my dad became my coach. And he would always ask me, in the winter, hey, what's your favorite sport? I'd say basketball. And then he'd say, okay. In the spring, he'd say, what's your favorite sport? I'd be like, it's baseball, obviously. And it went like that for a while until I hit my peak of being 6'5", and that wasn't tall enough to be as slow and clunky as I am. As you know from Twitter, my nickname is Lurch. So that wasn't going to translate into an NBA career. But anyway, I always get sidetracked. I guess we'll use this first episode to kind of let me just tell stories. But back, I'm 6 years old. I'm on the t-ball field, and it kind of just snowballed from there. I just assumed after that year that I was going to play baseball every spring until one day I either didn't like it or I was told I wasn't good enough. So that when I was 7, back to t-ball, 8. Onto the minor league field. The minors were the pitching machine. So the pitching machine was pitched to us for most of the game, or we hit off the pitching machine the whole time. And then when you're 9, you get to pitch to each other. I believe it was 1 inning or a couple innings a game, a 6-inning game. So you bring in a pitcher, he gets to pitch once, he goes up there and throws no strikes basically, and the umpire's very, very lenient for you, and you all try to get through it together. And then I moved on to majors at 10 years old. And that's when baseball really got real for me. 10-year-old playing with 12-year-olds. And as you know, boys mature. A 2-year difference at that age could be a very large difference in growth. I was a bigger kid, but I hadn't hit a growth spurt like my friends. So, I was still like 5'4", waiting to really, really spring up because I had the huge feet. Like I was at 12 years old, I wore size 12 shoe, which is insane. And it kind of just kept going from there. But 10-year-olds was the big. I played for Bob's Bob's Sporting Goods was our local sporting goods store. Yes, it's not a chain. It's a local mom and pop sporting goods store. So I was on Bob's, and we had our rivals. We had Elks, which a lot of my best friends growing up all through high school as well were on that team, and it was always a battle playing with them. And I kind of really got into the whole rivalry, hyper competitive. Like, we're pitching, kids are 12-year-olds got mustaches and they're throwing 65, 70 miles an hour, and I can't even sniff it. But I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to progress. And then I went and I played on Bob's all 3 years in the majors, is what we called it. And it was some of the best times of my life. I made some of my best friends that I was going to have, even till this day, guys that I go see when I go home, and a lot of people, a lot of my coaches and my teachers and my, friends' parents and anybody in the community that was watching us play baseball, going back and see them. I met that's where it all really started. But, I played in it was Cal Ripken baseball, so we weren't in the Little League World Series. We got to play in regionals once. Like, we didn't never won state. We were always, because we had really nice facilities, we held state or we held regionals in our hometown all the time, so we got an auto bid. It's the only time I ever played in those things, but I never went to the World Series. The year younger than me, the kids that are a lot of my good friends, they won state several times. They went to regionals. They even went to the World Series a couple times. They did well. So, but that was never me. I was always the year older. But that competitive fire kind of went, and with it came a little bit of frustration. I want to touch on this on the first episode, just telling my story and kind of giving you a background of who I am, because this is going to be kind of the prerequisite for everything that I've ever developed in my life, and as in terms of improvement and constantly pushing forward through obstacles, was probably brought on by the fact that my frustration switch was instant. I hit someone, or I walked someone, and I was packing that snowball at the top of the hill and pushing it down and just letting it go to myself. My emotions were on my sleeve. This includes tears in a big way. I became the quote unquote crybaby. That was my nickname for a long time, and that did not feel good. But it was something I had to work through, and it's something that I'm still to this day working through, managing how I perceive or how I maintain focus through a game, and take pressure and convert it into calm. And so when I was moving up through 10 through 12-year-olds, the guys were hesitant to put me on the coaches were hesitant to put me on the all-star team because I was a liability, because I could lose my cool, or I could be just lights out on the mound. I was the hardest thrower. I threw as hard as I could. That's what my dad always told me. And then we learned how to throw it where we wanted to throw it later. But I was an emotional kid, and that took me a lot of working through, and I really didn't make a good change until I was in high school. So let's fast forward a little bit and move up until we were 14, 15 years old. We played Babe Ruth League baseball up until we were 15, and high school. So the freshman team played in kind of two leagues. I was 14 years old on the freshman team. All freshmen could only play on the freshman team. I only get to throw 8 innings. I had like 16 strikeouts in 8 innings. But we get rained out a lot in Washington, just so if you're wondering why that's so low. But we only played like 8 games or something. But I still didn't pitch that much. We were really good. I think we were undefeated. But I really wanted to go to JV because I thought it was good enough. But the thing that's holding me back was my emotions. And people saw that in me, and it kind of really, really became a real problem when I was 15 years old, sophomore in high school. And we're picking all-star teams, and I'm sitting at how they do it. You sit out on the field, they call your name up one at a time, which is kind of cruel if you really think about it, but it gets you used to rejection, I guess. And they didn't call my name that year. And I remember that was probably the first time that I was openly swearing in front of my parents without them, getting on me about it, because they knew. They knew how much it meant to me. They knew how hard I worked to improve every day, going down and throwing bullpens with my dad twice a week, getting ready for the seasons. He was catching me just taking balls off the shins and the thighs all the time just to get me better. And I didn't make the team. Yeah, you could call this your Michael Jordan moment or whatever. But we ended up making a B team. Some of the other kids that were rejected's dads, coached that team, and we ended up being really successful. But that was kind of a snap moment to me where I'm like, dude, if you don't start to make real strides in controlling your emotions when you're on the mound, then you're not going to go any farther than this. And that's where things flipped around on me. Now, I really want to talk about how an awareness of what I was doing and why I was losing my cool when I was probably the turning point in my whole life, not just baseball. I realized I learned self-awareness to a point, at least when I was in high school, that I'm out on a mound, and if something bad happens to me, my brain immediately goes into what else bad is going to happen next. And that was an inherent flaw in my approach to games. And I worked really hard to change that. And by my senior year, I was being highly scouted. I was 6'5", 205 pounds. I'm skinny, but projectable. My velocity was getting into the mid 90s at times, and I quickly moved up the rating ladder. Now, how I got there from a mental standpoint was constant awareness of my body, constant awareness of why I was thinking the things I was thinking. And I learned that, but I only scratched the surface there, but it was enough to my talent took me to the next level once I was able to get that stuff under control. But even then, I'd still lose my composure a little bit here and there, and it was hard to get back. And it's not as easy as saying, keep your composure. It's more of a moment-to-moment basis, being aware of why you're thinking the things you're thinking. And I learned that late. So I ended up getting drafted in 2008 by the Philadelphia Phillies in the 4th round. I was committed to the University of Washington after my junior in high school because I wanted to stay, quote unquote, stay close to home. That did not manifest. I am very far away from home when I moved to Clearwater, Florida, to be in spring training with the Phillies. My first spring training was in 2009. Excuse me. And then I kind of took it as a new learning experience. It was all brand new. All this emotions came back. All this stuff I need to work on. All these new things. I had no idea how to play baseball, is what I was really, really told when I got there. But I was just excited. That first spring training, or that first extended when I was getting paid. Never mind. I reported in July, so I got the end of the 2008 season getting paid. Direct deposit took a couple paychecks to kind of set up, so I literally was paid in cash. My first paycheck, I was like $500, and I was like, I've never had this much. Like, this is crazy. This is so easy. All I gotta do is play baseball. And of course, you don't save it when you get in cash. You go spend it like an idiot. I think I went and bought an Xbox or something stupid. But it was just culture shock. I'd never even been to Florida for more than a week. I've never been away from home for more than 2 weeks. So I moved, and at the time, Phillies had Roy Halladay and Cole Hamels and those guys, and they were they won the World Series in 2008. They were the cream of the crop pitching wise. So a lot of the stuff I learned from that point on came from Doc, and Kyle Kendrick was there at the time, and a lot of really solid pitching. So I tried to absorb as much as I could, and I came right back to it. And this is going to be a theme here in our show here is self-awareness and learning yourself as quickly as humanly possible. So, 2012, I worked my way through the minor leagues in the Phillies, had some really good ups and downs, really good ups, and then some down years. I know in 2012 when I pitched for the Reading Phillies, it was a down year, probably the most I'd struggled ever in my pro career. And that's when you start to go, what is happening and why? It's another one of those days. It's another one of those times where you have to introspectively look and say, hey, why am I doing the things I'm doing, and where is it? Is it physically, mentally, physical or mental, or some combination? Which exact elements? And you go look for those things, and you then do the work over time to fix them. I was traded in 2012 over to the Minnesota Twins, who I'm now with, for Ben Revere, and along with Vance Worley. A lot of you guys know about that trade. And getting traded was interesting. I had a down year for the Phillies. Pretty much all of my good friends who were high level prospects with the Phillies had been traded at that point. I knew that's kind of the way we handle it. We did things in the offseason trying to continue to improve as an organization. And I knew that I might be on the chopping block, quote unquote. So it didn't surprise me. It was a little bittersweet. I was going to miss everyone from the Phillies. I missed the coaching staff and all the, everybody there was a great organization. It was a great complex, a great place to be. Reading was a great place to play, all this stuff. But at the same time, sometimes you need a clean slate, and that's the way I thought of it. And when someone trades for you, they want you. So I came over, and I was excited to get started. And at that point, I went to Double-A again and struggled again. And it wasn't constant struggle. It wasn't like can't get anybody out. It was phenomenal start, horrible start, phenomenal start, horrible start, which evens out to a middling year. And I realized that inconsistency is still my problem. Emotions are still my problem. And lack of focus when my emotions take over is a major problem for me. And that's when I made a lot of big changes. Now, I'm going to get into some really specifics on things that I do off the field and I do every day in order to improve my self-awareness, my mindfulness, and improve my focus. And those things go right along with physical workout programs, things that revolve around body control. And so that when my brain is where I need it to be, that my body can do the actions that the brain is telling it to do. All of those things are things I am going to touch on in later episodes. I don't want to blow it all out, quote unquote, in this first episode. But I do want to kind of start setting the preface and prerequisites for a lot of these things. My whole life has been evolving around goal setting and developing affirmations processes and all of these things, and then learning so much all along with how my brain works, but how my arm also works, how my body works, how well I repeat my delivery, how beneficial long toss is for me as opposed to other people, how beneficial these arm strengthening programs might be, like from Jaeger, from driveline bases, how much science, learning all the science behind how my ball moves and how my breaking ball moves and where I miss when I'm tired and where I'm locating when I'm good and who hits what, why, and where. I just want to know why. I always ask for the question why. And if I had to give one overarching theme of everything that I'm going to touch on in this podcast, it is we are going to learn why. And I would love to help anyone out there who's interested in learning why things are happening to them, because it's different from everybody and there's no one answer. And if you're out there and your coaches, know that your players are also going to have different things that they respond to and different things that work for them from a physical, mental, and motivation standpoint. And learning those things is your job. That's what inherently makes great coaching. That's what I always responded to with my great coaches. Is they asked me the questions and I came up with the answers, or we came up with the answers together, and things went from there. So, that's kind of my story. Me coming from being 6 to me being 28. It was very, very kind of general. I tried to set some markers being drafted, not getting, picked for the all-star team, being a little bit smaller, hitting a growth spurt, all these things that kind of held me back from fulfilling my full potential. And I'm still in that quest. I am no way, shape, or form there. There is a lot I've not done on a Major League Baseball field at all. I've had some bright spots that I'm proud of, but other than that, I have a lot of work to do, and I know that. And I want to keep, I'll come all the way back to being accountable. This is a great way, for me to say things publicly and have to follow them up in the best of my ability, and I love that. I think that's going to be great for me. I think that's going to be great for you guys to kind of see these things kind of in action, so you can be out there and say, "Hey, Trev, don't forget to go to your, talking to the TV or whatever it is." That's my dream. So, moving forward, I have a lot of opportunity or a lot of ideas for topics we can touch. I would love for you guys to always hit me up on Twitter. That is my main mode of communication. My DMs are open. If there's things you want to hear about specifically, I know that we've talked about grips. I know that we've talked about long toss programs and workout programs and mental programs and all this stuff. I'm going to get into very specifics on later episodes. I'm hoping to do this thing twice a week, touch on some really, really highly requested stuff. And also I want to phase in YouTube when it becomes really important to do video content in terms of grips and actual mechanical stuff, just things to kind of add as a companion to this podcast. So today it's very little editing. It's very little, organization. I just really want to hear how it's going to come out. I want to know what you guys think. So hit me up at TrevMay, at TrevMay65 on Twitter, or at TrevMay65 on Instagram. I would also love to do some live sessions on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/IamTrevormay. I'm always on there playing games, and so if you ever need to come blow off some steam and talk to me and hang out, I'm there quite a bit as well. So thank you so much for your time listening to this nice, concise 30-minute first episode. Just give you a little bit of prerequisite on what we're going to talk about. Don't forget to just out of the kindness of your heart, go hit that 5-star button and leave a phenomenal review that you're excited about the next few episodes. And I will see you in the next episode of the Trevor May podcast, where we talk about baseball, and some other stuff. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.